Hello and welcome to another Historic Games video on the official MTG Arena channel. Today we're taking a look at a blue-black self-mill graveyard deck that has been upgraded with a Bloodghast in the recent Historic Anthology, a 2-mana 2/1 that cannot block, has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life, and with a landfall we can get it back from the graveyard, so we're almost never going to cast Bloodghast. Instead we want to mill it into our graveyard and then get it back for free. Bloodghast also an excellent way of enabling a prized amalgam, which can then also come back from the graveyard end of turn as a 3/3. We've got our 4 copies of Narcomoeba, which we can also mill as a 1/1 flyer that we can put straight onto the battlefield then, and then can also potentially enable prized amalgam to return. We've got 4 copies of Creeping Chill as another card we actively want to mill to drain the opponent for 3, and that's also a way to return our Silver Smote Ghoul from the graveyard as a 3/1 that can return if we gained 3 or more life this turn. Not the best right now when facing Orcish Bowmasters, but when we can get it back for free and potentially get it back several times if we cast multiple Creeping Chills, that's still a pretty good deal. And then we've got more ways to enable these self-mill synergies with 4 copies of Stitcher Supplier, mills 3 when it enters and when it dies, so a perfect card to potentially chum block with. 2 copies of Merfolk Secret Keeper to mill for 4 and then an 0/4 creature afterwards. 4 copies of Otherworldly Gaze, which can surveil 3, so we can potentially put all 3 cards in graveyard or keep some good cards on top, and can also be flashed back for 1 and a blue, so if we end up milling it we can still flash it back to get more value. And then at 2 mana we've got a full set of Glimpse the Unthinkable, which can mill a player for 10, so we're going to target ourselves with it and likely find a bunch of goodies like our various zombies and vampires that we can get back from the graveyard. And then 4 copies of Mesmeric Orb, which is another powerful mill engine, saying whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. So if we play this, we're going to end up milling ourselves by untapping our lands, but also by untapping our creatures, of which there are many if we have an explosive start, so that can also end up finding more and more stuff in our graveyard. Can be a double-edged sword sometimes. If we play too many copies of Mesmeric Orb, there is the risk of decking ourselves before killing the opponent, especially if an opposing 1 ring is involved to stall out the game, so have to be mindful when playing more than 1 Mesmeric Orb out that we don't end up decking. Could also turn into an alternate win condition, I suppose, if we mill the opponent with it and then target them with Glimpse or with Merfolk Secret Keeper. We can try to mill them out if we somehow don't get there with damage, so that can be a nice backup plan. And then cards like Prize Amalgam and Ghoul entering the battlefield tapped is also pretty synergistic with Orb, because that means they'll immediately help us put more cards in the graveyard. And then we also have 2 copies of Haunted Dead, which we also want to use out of the graveyard for 1 and a black, discard 2 cards, so that's a way of putting Prize Amalgam, Ghoul, and Bloodghast in our graveyard if we have them stuck in our hand, and then we get to return Haunted Dead, which will also help trigger Prize Amalgam and make a 1/1 Flying Spirit token at the same time, so that also helps us go wide to enable Mesmeric Orb. And then of course Creeping Chill we can also try to cast at 4 mana if it's stuck in our hand. We've got 1 copy of Jace, which can also mill us for 15, although it does cost 4 mana if we want to cast it for the full amount, which can be a bit pricey in a format as fast as Historic. And then 1 copy of Wander, which has 8 islands to go with it. We've got our 4 basic islands, 4 copies of Watery Grave, so if we have Wander in our graveyard and we control an island, our creatures will gain flying, so that can also be useful if our opponent's got lots of ground blockers, thinking of all the 1/1s from Orcish Bowmaster, then now we can potentially fly over them and still kill the opponent in time. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. This does not seem like a keeper, just a supplier, no second land for Orb. This is definitely better. Get rid of 1 Creeping Chill, and then supplier into Glimpse is our plan. Opponent to red-green. Milled an Amalgam, that's good. Could also cast Gaze in our upkeep, but more likely to just want to tap out for Glimpse. Ooh, Kavu gives the opponent some main deck graveyard hate, so that's bad news. Just gotta hope to get everything out of the graveyard right now. So let's say we attack with Supplier, or do I just jump with it since our opponent's gonna have to attack with a Kavu to exile stuff, so then I can mill 3 more. Seems more relevant than 1 damage. Okay, we hit an Narcomoeba and double Creeping Chill, so we can get back Prize Amalgam right now. And we even have a Silver Smote Ghoul to return. Not bad. So we'll pass it. It is looking like I'm gonna cast Gaze in upkeep here. Opponent's down to 10, so Bloodghast has haste. And I guess there is a Bloodghast they can exile if they want to. Wild Nakadal, so opponent on a Zoo deck and a Tribal Flames kills Prize Amalgam, so they're going to try and exile that with a Kavu now. Alright, I'm down to chump. Another Bloodghast, Narcomoeba. So yeah, I really want to find a land so I get back double Bloodghast with haste. I'll just cast a 1 mana Gaze, I think, over 2 mana Flashback Gaze, because I could also play Narcomoeba. Okay, so found a land. Glimpse could be useful. So yeah, let's say we keep Glimpse on top. Do I want Mesmeric Orb as well? Probably doesn't matter if I keep Glimpse, because then I end up milling it. So we'll try this approach. I'll draw the land. Get back double Bloodghast. And then we can attack all out. And play Narcomoeba. So yeah, triple Narcomoeba could get there if our opponent doesn't gain any life. And we've got Glimpse coming up. Bloodbraid, alright, our opponent's gonna go out swinging. Cascades into Nishoba Brawler. And our opponent explodes. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a decent hand. We've got 2 powerful mill effects. And then hoping to find some goodies. Start with Glimpse, probably. The more explosive opening. And then Orb will be more effective once we have more lands in play. Okay, so found Narcomoeba, Creeping Chill, and Prize Amalgam. And I think that's it. And then double Gaze to Flashback as well. Invasion, so opponent might be a combo deck if they're playing Pilgrim Invasion to dig for some missing piece. Potentially a Scurry Oak combo deck with a Rosie, who knows? Nope, just maybe a Green Devotion strategy after all. Polukranos. So we get to attack with everyone. And probably just play Mesmeric Orb. And then I'll put a stop end of turn so we can tap the lands to mill for 1 more. Next turn Jace, mill for 15. And there's Nykthos into Kiora. Although they can't play Polukranos currently. Orb also mills the opponent, which is pretty funny when untapping with Kiora. And another Invasion. So their Devotion is arising pretty quickly. Not sure if our opponent's playing Karn, which could maybe get a sideboard Graveyard Hate card. That could be a problem. Mill for 5. Finding Bloodghast, which will come back. And an Narcomoeba. So I can play a land, get back Bloodghast, and then mill for 15. Hoping to hit a Creeping Chill so Bloodghast gains haste. And we did. And then I could take out Kiora, which might be safer here. Prevent the opponent from fully going off. Get back double Silver Smote and Prize Amalgam, so yeah, we're pretty far ahead on board. So now even if Karn shows up, we're not too worried. 20 cards in a library, so there's no risk of decking myself. Another Kiora. Step 1. And Polukranos. And yeah, there is Karn the Grey Crater. Could have been effective earlier. They seem pretty dead on board, and they explode. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, and we don't have the most explosive start. Double Orb is gonna take a while to get going, So do we still keep? On the draw, this feels a bit too slow to me. Alright, this is much better. And then maybe one supplier can go. May not be great in every matchup, although could also maybe just ditch a land. Opponents also blue-black, but no turn 1 play. So let's just play maybe Stitcher Supplier, since our opponent might have a Spell Pierce up, which can counter Venture Deeper, but it won't counter a Supplier. One Silver Smote Ghoul in graveyard, and they consider end of turn. Okay, so depending on if the coast is clear, we can Glimpse next turn, or just double 1-drop. Start by getting in for 1. Opponent might be keeping up an Orcish Bowmasters here. They could have a Make Disappear to counter Glimpse, and this is really a card I want to resolve. Next turn they could keep up Archmage's Charm, so kind of between a rock and a hard place. But let's try just Venture Deeper before playing land in case we mill Bloodghast. Creeping Chill will get back Silver Smote, that's nice. And a Cling to Dust, okay. Opponent's got main deck Graveyard Hate, that's unfortunate. And another Creeping Chill. So can't get back Prize Amalgam just yet. Opponent passes. I guess we'll kick things off with Stitcher Supplier. Could also go for Glimpse, but then a Make Disappear would be bad. And I can maybe pay for it next turn with an extra land drop. See if this prompts a response. Yep, there's a Make Disappear. Okay, now we can Glimpse and hope to mill more goodies. Okay, Narcomoeba will trigger double Prize Amalgam. Get in for 2. So we're on the board. Next turn I could maybe upkeep Gaze, or we can hardcast Silver Smote. So we'll see if our opponent's got some Bowmasters here to keep up. They don't, and our opponent explodes. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and our hand is acceptable, I think. Supplier into double Orb. Even though we would prefer not to have Ghoul or Creeping Chill in hand. And we found a Haunted Dead, so that can maybe discard Ghoul and Creeping Chill. That might be better than playing Mesmeric Orb, since Orb wouldn't mill a whole lot yet. Our opponent is playing the Charbelcher combo deck, so they don't have any actual lands outside of these dual-faced cards, so if they activate Charbelcher, they can just kill us on the spot. And then next turn I'll have plenty of tapped creatures to help self-mill with Mesmeric Orb. I wouldn't mind a land, so I can also play a Stitcher Supplier. The fact that our deck is resilient against interaction doesn't really matter in this matchup, since the opponent's just gonna hit us with 40 plus damage. So first we want to play Supplier, in case we mill Bloodghast, and then play the land. Prize Amalgam, okay. Play Orb, so we wouldn't be getting back Prize Amalgam this turn. Possible our opponent's holding a Spikefield Hazard, but they might want to use it as a land drop instead of a removal spell. So next turn we're scheduled to mill for 6. So unlikely to present lethal next turn, but hopefully we'll get there in 2 turns before the opponent combos us. Okay, it's going to be a march for x equals 2. Finds Offer You Can't Refuse and Shadow Skull Smashing. And there we see Creativity. Okay, Pact of Negation, not the best in this matchup. So yeah, we'll see. If our opponent can cast an Ironcrag Feat into Charbelcher, we could be dead on turn 4. Another March for x equals 0 this time. And we're going to counter it to make some treasure. I guess a potential side effect of milling the opponent with our Mesmeric Orb is that they might not have enough cards left in library to kill us with a Charbelcher activation, but they should still have plenty left here, so unlikely to be relevant. So did not mill anything too amazing, double Amalgam in graveyard, but no way of getting it back. So things are not looking great. There's no Bloodghast to return, so might want to keep a land in hand to get it back next turn. Their opponent's at 10, but we're not even presenting lethal next turn unless we mill multiple copies of Creeping Chill. And I guess that's the reason to play Watery Grave, is an extra way to mill with Mesmeric Orb. Definitely want to tap my land end of turn to mill for 2 more. So does our opponents have the Ironcrag feat? Bloodghast would now have haste. And it's going to be a Prismari command to destroy a Mesmeric Orb, make a treasure. Yeah, so next turn they can potentially just cast Charbelcher and activate it. Unlikely to present 5 more damage here out of nowhere, but we can hope double Creeping Chill would do it. Oh, let me put an upkeep stop here so we can gaze before taking our draw step. Haunted Dead would also be a way of getting back Price Amalgam, but now that might be too slow. Okay, so flashback gaze before drawing. Hope to mill some more goodies. And yeah, there's a Creeping Chill. I guess we can mill Creeping Chill and keep Glimpse to maybe mill more Creeping Chills. So, Chill down to 7. We'll also get back Bloodghast with haste. So we might get there. Amalgam's probably not going to matter. Opponent might still have some removal they can cast. So definitely want a Glimpse to try and hit another Creeping Chill. And yeah, double Creeping Chill Narcomoeba. So that should do it. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. So I'm sure opponent was ready to combo us next turn, but we got there just in time. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, and our hand seems acceptable. We've got double Supplier alongside Mesmeric Orb to kick us off. Could use a Glimpse, but that's always the case. Okay, Prize Amalgam and now Gaze milled. So could decide to cast Gaze here instead of Supplier or Mesmeric Orb. Kind of like playing the Orb when we have an extra tapped creature. Will mill us for 3. And then I could Gaze in upkeep, potentially. Their opponent's playing all one-offs to try and kill us with Tainted Pact alongside, I guess, Thassa's Oracle is banned, but there's still 4 mana Jace. So let's mill for 3, and then I can decide if I want to flashback Gaze or not. Okay, Wander will give our creatures flying, that's nice. I guess for now we can just draw and play Stitcher Supplier. Glimpse milled, not exactly what we were hoping for. And then I want to make sure to tap the island in the opponent's end step, so we mill more with Mesmeric Orb. Okay, opponent's playing red as well for the Blade Reforged. Could also be a combo with Tainted Pact, I suppose, to make it incredibly large. Narset to prevent us from drawing. That's fine. So let's tap the island. Mill for 3. Okay, Haunted Dead is excellent. That can discard Silver Smote Ghoul and Bloodghast here. And now a Creeping Chill will get back Silver Smote Ghoul as well. So I'll just do that. Wouldn't be able to get back Bloodghast unless we naturally draw another land here. And then Haunted Dead will help bring back Price Amalgam as well. Take our draw step. And attack Narset. Fine to leave Narset at 1 loyalty, just don't want our opponent being able to -2 again. Alright, so we've got a nice team of flying zombies now. Milling the opponent could be dangerous if they're holding a Jace Wielder of Mysteries. But we're probably gonna kill them with damage before that's relevant. So we definitely want to try and keep a land on top with the Gaze so we can get back Bloodghast. So before drawing, we'll Gaze. Possible our opponent's got a counterspell. Hitting our land drops is also going to be important if we eventually want to cast Creeping Chill. And I might actually want to keep Supplier on top since decking could be a concern with her own Mesmeric Orb. And we'll end up milling the Supplier anyways. So Amalgam triggers. Can play a land to get back Bloodghast, although it's not going to have haste yet. And attack, and they can all go face at this point. Opponent's at 4, get back Amalgam. A Tainted Pact end of turn, that could be bad news. If our opponent already has a Jace Wielder of Mysteries in hand, they can just basically go through their whole deck, since it's all one-offs, and then play Jace and win the game next turn. Our opponent does still need to account for Mesmeric Orb, milling them for a bunch. So if they're not careful and go a little bit too far with the Tainted Pact, then they might end up drawing from an empty library before they get a chance to cast Jace. So we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued. So they have to leave enough cards not to mill with Mesmeric Orb, and to be able to play Jace and win the game. So I think they've already surpassed that point. Opponent finds an opt. Mesmeric Orb triggers. And yeah, with 2 cards left, our opponent explodes. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This is an easy mulligan. This is also pretty bad. No self-mill except for Jace. This we can try to keep. So Creeping Chill, Narcomoeba, Argon can hang on to Bloodghast since we can actually cast it. Although it's possible Narcomoeba's better, but I'll hang on to Bloodghast. Opponent blue-whites with a turn 1 Illumimancer, so they're gonna come out the gates swinging. Supplier at least can chum block. Not the best mills so far. Could consider casting Gaze and Upkeep next turn as well, and then play another Supplier afterwards. And a play with fire takes out Supplier. Mills us for 3. Alright, not bad. Hit Narcomoeba and Amalgam, which will come back end of turn. And Narcomoeba, another creature that could get in the way. For now, I'll take 2. Opponent considers, so that's 4 damage. Yeah, don't mind an upkeep Gaze. And then Bloodghast can go. Another Gaze we can mill. And then do I want to keep Darkslick Shores? Yeah, I guess it's not the worst to draw. Get back Bloodghast. hit for 4. Supplier can jump. Soulscar Mage. Okay. And another Lumimancer. So our opponent might be setting up for an explosive turn coming up here. So likely going to keep some creatures on defense. So I could flashback Gaze, or I could take my draw step in case I draw Mesmeric Orb or Glimpse, which would be better. Yeah, I'll take my draw step. Just a land. So in that case, we'll flashback Gaze over playing Bloodghast. And Secret Keeper we can draw. Okay. So now I feel okay attacking with a Price Amalgam and Bloodghast. Got 3 chum blockers. Anger will give Trample. Could be pretty effective. And let's just chump the rest. So end up milling the Secret Keeper, which would have been nice to cast, but that's okay. And then now I could flashback Gaze, and then still play Hasty Bloodghast. I guess Glimpse would be nice too. Although Bloodghast is guaranteed lethal if there's no interaction, whereas Glimpse, you know, at this point is almost guaranteed since we're gonna likely mill a Creeping Chill. But let's just go for Bloodghast. Sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a solid hand. Some early self-mill, double Mesmeric Orb could put in some work. And then depending on the matchup we could start with Secret Keeper, that's probably fine. Alright, so far just mill the Glimpse. Opponent also blue-black. Yeah, I think I'll just play Mesmeric Orb. Could also play Supplier and then Gaze. And then next turn Orb will be more effective with a potentially tapped creature. But I could also play a second Orb in the meantime. So let's just do that instead. With double Orb, self-milling and dying to an empty library is certainly a concern. But I'm hoping we can deal some damage in the meantime. So play Supplier before playing land in case we hit Bloodghast, and then play another Mesmeric Orb. Might get countered by Make Disappear. Yep, that's fine. So double Orb means we'll mill for 6 next turn. Although our opponent on kind of the blue-black control deck, the One Ring also pretty effective against our strategy. They might have Shieldred in there. At least we are fine against counter spells, since we don't really care if anything gets countered at this point. Can still cast and flashback Gaze and upkeep if we'd like. We'll be getting back a Prized Amalgam. Jace would have been nice to cast. Creeping Chill is great too here. Hoping to find some ghouls to get back. Another Amalgam. That one will come back in the opponent's end step after seeing the first Amalgam. And then, sure, let's just flash back Gaze. Our opponent's considering a counterspell here, perhaps. And mill the ghoul, so that's gonna be quite nice. And probably just want to mill the lands. Could keep some cards on top again in case we end up decking. Can play Secret Keeper and still play Gaze. I should probably just play Gaze now, honestly, in case we mill another ghoul. Or a Bloodghast. Can keep Glimpse on top, although it's going to get milled by Mesmeric Orb. But at this point I think that's maybe safer. since we're gonna end up with an empty library pretty soon. And then playing land gets back Bloodghast. Next turn we can just cast a Creeping Chill. Opponent might have Orcish Bowmasters at the ready to take out an Archamoeba. So now we'll be getting back both Amalgams since Bloodghast triggered the second one as well. Sometimes it can be beneficial to leave Amalgam in the graveyard to get back in the opponent's end step if you're playing around, let's say, an Anger of the Gods, exiling your creatures. But in this case, I'm not too concerned. So Bowmasters can take out Silver Smote, and then we'll get it back with Creeping Chill next turn. About to mill, let's see, 14 cards next turn. So, yeah, it's not going to give us much time to close out the game. Fatal Push kills Bloodghast, that's fine. And the Borrower to bounce Amalgam. Opponent mills for a bunch. So yeah, now the main concern is like a one ring stalling out the game. But we've already milled 2 copies. Untap, mill for a bunch. Okay, Haunted Dead could also be used to discard Amalgam, Creeping Chill. Another Archamoeba. So, opponent still at 16, so Bloodghast does not have haste. So I think we save that for next turn. Just take our draw step, find Supplier, 20 cards remaining. So, let's say we attack. Opponent flashes in Bowmasters. Next turn, we want to make sure we don't die to Mesmeric Orb. And we want to try and close out the game in 2 turns, basically. So I guess for now we can attack. See what happens. Charm the Secret Keeper to block with it, fair enough. So now I can just cast a Creeping Chill. Or I could play Amalgam and Supplier. Could of course also not tap my lands so we don't get milled by Mesmeric Orb as much. But let's assume my Creeping Chill points at 8. Next turn I will untap 8 permanents, so that's mill 16, 4 cards remaining. Likely to hit another Creeping Chill, and then we're just going to try to hit a land drop to get back Hasty Bloodghast. Yeah, that seems like a plan. And get back another ghoul. I guess I didn't account for an extra ghoul. So that's mill 2 more cards. So we should still have enough cards in library where we don't deck. But it's getting close. Opponent's at 8. So we have 2 Creeping Chills left in the deck. So that accounts for 6 more damage. And then Wander now gives a team flying, that's helpful. And then we can flashback Gaze to try and hit a land drop for Bloodghast. But yeah, for opponent played a 1 ring here. That could have been really bad. And another Creeping Chill, opponent's at 2. So they shouldn't be surviving this. Got 2 cards left, can just double check that we're maybe still gonna hit a land drop. Bloodghast, I guess we can just hardcast as well. So no lands left in the deck to enable landfall. So let's just play Hasty Bloodghast. Can our opponent survive with double Bowmasters, maybe? I don't think so. Kill Ghoul, and our team has flying. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. Alright, so we got to see our blue-black self-mill deck in action, and Bloodghast makes for a natural inclusion here, giving you another way of getting back Prize Amalgam, as well as another hasty threat to help close out the game. So yeah, overall quite impressed by this self-mill strategy. It's a pretty well-positioned deck when facing mid-range and control strategies that try to interact with a lot of spot removal and discard spells, since for the most part you can ignore those. But if you're up against other combo strategies, it can be a bit tough, since they tend to be a turn or two faster than us when we try and get there with damage. But yeah, overall still a pretty well-positioned deck in the historic meta. So that'll do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.